Hey, everybody, welcome again to the Life Makeovers podcast. It's Cindy Whitmer here, the Midlife Makeover Coach. And in this podcast, I wanted to share wisdom with other women who are in midlife or have been through midlife so we can all just feel like we are together in this journey and that we can learn from each other's transformations. And today I have with me a friend of mine, Stephanie Barton, whom I've known for a few years. I'm not sure how many, maybe 4, maybe 5.
I
Something
think
like
longer
that.
than that. Yeah, it feels like maybe 10.
Well, anyway, well, no, I've only lived in Lawrence for 6.
So,
So I met you sometime after I moved here. I
yeah,
know. But
yeah.
anyway, so Stephanie, would you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Well, I'm happy to be here and thank you for hosting this show and for offering such a beautiful gift. Midlife is a very exciting time, but it can sure be challenging as well. So I'm just happy to contribute my love and wisdom. Uh,
Thank you.
my professional background is in nursing. I went to college and obtained my degree as a nurse and then worked in acute care for a good number of years because I've always known I wanted to help people. But as I got further into my career as a nurse, I discovered that I had some other healing abilities and aptitudes that I believed could really serve the community as well. And that is, I have the ability to communicate with loved ones who've passed away. I can see auras or energy fields, and I'm very intuitively sensitive to the unseen, which is really what contributes so much to our world. So I chose to leave my job as a nurse, and now I do this work as a spiritual medium and intuitive on a full-time basis. And I love it, and I can't imagine doing anything else because to know who we are as souls is one of the most empowering gifts that we can give ourselves, because our bodies change, but our souls will always remain with us. And I think that's an important thing to hold on to in a world that can sometimes be a little topsy-turvy.
Yeah, and I hear people talking about the world right now and just feeling so overwhelmed and stressed and worried about so many things and anxious about so many things. And so I find comfort in some of these, in the spiritual things I believe, and thinking of myself as a soul that never dies and things like that. That's just my belief. And hey, all of you listeners out there, please just open your mind and open your heart. If this is new information for you, if this is outside your comfort zone, it's okay with us. We're not here to judge anyone who feels differently or thinks differently, who's never considered some of these things. But it is a fascinating conversation to talk about our souls and the spiritual things of a spiritual nature and so forth. So let's get started, Stephanie. So tell me, how can we know our souls? Like how do we get in touch with that part of ourselves?
Well, we're very beautifully and wonderfully made because we were created with a very physical vehicle that helps us understand where our soul is in relation to where we are on our life's journey. And that physical vehicle is our body. So I firmly believe that our bodies teach us about how we feel and, more importantly, about who we really are. And as we are in midlife and we get aches and pains and roles and changes that we've not had before, I think it's incredibly important to learn to embrace what our body is communicating with us and to us so that we can really feel at home in our body because we know who we are as souls.
Yeah, as I coach women in midlife, I talk to women in midlife all over the country and the world, actually. And, there is a real common theme with a lot of women that they're in conflict with their bodies in
Yeah.
one way or another. They're either dealing with chronic pain
Yeah.
kinds of issues, or they don't like their bodies.
Yes.
They think they're fat, or they think they're aging too quickly, or their body isn't flexible enough, or they're not strong enough, or they're not able to do the same things they were able to do 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and they're conflicted about that. And sometimes sexually they're experiencing life differently than they were before, and that's frustrating. And there's just so many things. And honestly, a lot of women have told me that they think when they get to midlife, they're in their 40s or 50s or 60s, they feel like all they have to look forward to from a body standpoint is slowing down, aging, illness, and death.
Mhm.
So that's kind of a sad
Yeah.
thing to me. But what would you say to all of that, or what hope can you give to women out there from what you know in your work?
Well, I truly believe that when we are willing to step out of judgment of our bodies as being good or bad, young or old, fat or skinny, and
Yeah.
instead observe and reflect on how our bodies are communicating with us, then
Mhm.
suddenly we're not at war with physicality, but we're aligned with that true spirituality that can inspire us to feel good physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But we've got to be willing to make peace with our bodies so we can listen and then start to do our soul's work.
Mm. So how do we do that? Can you say more about how we make peace with our body and get in touch with that soul part and learn, tap into what our soul really is calling us to do?
I think one of the first and most important steps is really accepting that I have a body, but I'm more than my body.
Mm.
So that
Hmm.
we begin to draw awareness away from just the physicality and into the idea that there is so much more than just this skin and bones.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So after we've acknowledged I have a body, but I'm more than a body, then I think the next really important step is making the decision to learn instead of judge.
Mm. Hmm. I love that. Yeah. So learning what our body is trying to communicate to
Mhm.
us instead of just judging what we feel is wrong with it.
Correct, correct.
Mm.
And we quickly go down the path of I'm not good because I don't look good, or I'm not good because I don't feel good. We think we are those physical states. So first we recognize we're more than that, and then we acknowledge there's something we can learn from this. That really starts to help give us some power and some energy to feel good and to feel open in a way that we couldn't if we just shut ourselves down.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I love that. Another thing is a lot of women don't sleep well in this
Mhm.
stage, right? They either have interrupted sleep, or they can't sleep very many hours, or they're waking up with hot flashes in the middle of the night or whatever. And so, what about our sleep patterns? I mean, that's part of our physical self, but how
Mhm.
does that relate to what you're wanting us to understand about learning from that and connecting
Mhm.
to our soul more?
I think for most of us as women, when we get to that midlife age, there's sort of an accumulation or a cumulative energy of I've been worrying, I've been thinking, I've been going, I've been doing. And eventually we need to stop and kind of unwind and undo some of that. And
Mm,
so when we do have interrupted sleep and when we are not able to rest as much as we'd like to, I
mhm,
think the first thing that our body is calling us to do is give ourselves permission to let go.
mm, mm. Let go of regrets, let go
Let go
of
of regret, to let
thought.
go of over responsibility, to let go of expectations, to let go of judgment. But what I have found so frequently in working with individuals is that a lack of sleep is an indication that something needs to be released and let go.
Wow, that's so interesting. Wow. So if we learn to let go, we'll sleep better, you mean? Or if we sleep more, we'll learn to let go.
It's, well, like anything, they're interrelated. But the more deeply we can practice letting go of self-judgment, letting go of perfectionism, letting go of whatever it is we think we were supposed to have done, letting go of anxiety, the more we're able to consciously let go of those things before we go to sleep, the deeper we'll be able to sleep and the more rested we can become.
Mm. And then how does that help with our relationship with our soul?
So as we're more well rested, we feel more at ease and more confident in taking action to take care of our bodies, or to listening and being patient with ourselves before we judge. So as we rest and as we've released what was, we have more energy to really cultivate what is and then grow more of what we want, instead of feeling stuck in the judgment and the fatigue and the limitations. Letting go opens up to receiving more.
Mm. Yeah, oh, I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's like a decluttering of the mind, a decluttering of the past, of who knows what else, but it kind of opens us up to what's possible, doesn't it?
It does. It does. So if we're waking up in the night, the first thing to do is not judge, but to say, I'm just going to let go of whatever's interfering, whatever's interrupting. I'm just going to recognize that and let it go. And then just relax and see what happens from there.
Mm, okay. So what if someone is striving for that, but they don't really know what they need to let go of?
Mhm.
Sometimes people don't know, right?
Correct. And sometimes it's okay to not know. It's the willingness that can really start to change that and bring some peace around that. I don't know what it is, but whatever's causing me regret, anxiety, lack of sleep, I am hereby willing to let it go.
So you can just make a general kind of declaration of, I'm here and I'm willing to do this,
Yes, absolutely.
help release whatever that energy might be or whatever that's.
Correct.
Mm,
I found that in the beginning of the pandemic, I was having an especially hard time sleeping. And so what I decided to do was just have a piece of paper and a pen next to my bed. And if I woke up, when I woke up, I would just scribble, 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 scribble. It wouldn't be words. I wouldn't need to know what it meant, but whatever it was that was causing my body to wake up, I would get it out. And then it was more easy for me to fall asleep than if I just tried to figure out what was going on in my head and got stuck and focused on the not sleeping. Instead, I just got it out, and that helped me so much.
I love that idea. So keep paper at your bedside.
Mhm.
I'm writing that down. I'm going to do a follow up in a couple of days, and I want to remember some of these gems you're sharing.
Mhm.
And so to just kind of freelance doodle scribble, it doesn't have to be a deep dark journal
No,
entry or letter to the self. You're just saying whatever comes, get it on the
get it out,
paper, and that's
get
a
it out.
form of release as well.
It is. You're getting something out of your body by using the pen and the paper. You're getting it out. I started calling that for myself my night shift, because I was shifting the energy of anxiety at night. So those were my night shift notes.
I love it. Oh, night shift notes. I love it. So how do we know what our body needs? How do we know?
Mhm. Well, it's like any situation, whether it's what your kids need or what your first thing is, you just have to pay attention and be willing to listen and say, I don't know. I don't know. because sometimes we fall back into what we've done in the past and it doesn't work, and then we get frustrated and think nothing will work. Or sometimes we feel so overwhelmed because so much feels out of balance. So as we're starting to listen to our bodies, and as we're willing to understand what our soul is communicating, it's first just realizing, maybe I won't know, maybe I don't know, but I'll listen so that I can learn.
Mm, beautiful. So again, just really getting quiet and listening and paying attention, huh?
Absolutely. And oftentimes just that willingness to listen really starts to create more peace and some healing, because we are then aligned with our spirits. We can then receive a little bit of that comfort from our soul, because instead of fighting, we're accepting and loving. And that really does create so much of a difference in our inner world.
Mm. I'm a big Louise Hay fan, and she always recommended that we sit in front of a mirror or stand in front of a mirror and tell ourselves that we love ourselves. You know, like me saying, I love you, Cindy, or you saying, I love you, Stephanie, or whatever. And she, even with body work, suggested people stand naked and think about all the things they love about their body, even though what we are quick to see is what we don't love, is what I find with most women. Very quick to see what they don't love, you know?
Yes. I think the only challenge in that particular kind of exercise is that it does make us our body. We're focusing on what we love about our body. And I think we are able to shift that is, I have this body and I love and appreciate my body, but I'm more than this body. So
Yeah.
those kinds of exercises, I think, can sometimes be a little challenging and maybe not as rewarding, because it does only place the emphasis on the body.
That makes so much sense. Okay, what about, I'll tell you what the number one body issue I hear from women in midlife. Do you want to guess? You probably know.
Um,
Guesses?
Weight.
Weight. Yep.
Yes,
What
yes.
about weight gain, excess weight, or fluctuating weight?
Mhm,
What do you
mhm.
think the body is trying to tell us when there's extra weight or?
So what I would encourage each person who's going through those kinds of weight shifts to look at is, what are the stabilizing forces in my life right now? Because
Mm,
oftentimes when our weight is fluctuating tremendously, it's an indication that we're not feeling stable or centered inside.
okay. Okay. So looking for your own stability, like what helps you feel secure in your life or feel grounded
Yes,
in your life, will help with
yes.
weight fluctuations.
It absolutely will. And we won't get so wrapped up in the numbers going up and down, because we'll be centered and know who we are. And then we're not as attached to the slight variations and the shifting of the numbers as they go up and down. But that is 9 times out of 10 an indication that we're lacking stability in one area or another of life. And the
Mm,
moment we find center, then those fluctuations tend to get a little more even.
okay. And what if someone is just chronically overweight? Like they've been overweight for, 10 years, 20, 30, whatever. I mean, is there something, maybe there's nothing wrong with that? Wrong with that. I mean, in our society, we think it's wrong.
Mhm.
We're told or we see all these images of thin people and that that's the goal, and or to be athletic and strong or whatever. So, I mean, what do you say about that from a soul perspective?
I
Can it
say that our,
matter at all, or does it matter? Or
well, so from a general perspective, looking at the highest point, our souls have chosen the bodies that are perfect for us to learn whatever it is that we need to learn in this lifetime.
okay.
Our souls don't say, I want a big body or a short body. Our souls say, I want the body that's going to get the job done.
Oh,
So if your life lesson is about acceptance, then maybe your soul chose a body that would be different, so to speak, so that you would really have to accept yourself from within instead of having the acceptance coming from the world outside.
Wow. That is so fascinating. I mean, that's really a fascinating perspective. I love that.
Well, it brings comfort, and it certainly brings an understanding, because there are some people, and I talk with clients regularly, where they've always been heavy, or they've always been different in one way or another. And well, why am I this way? And what I encourage each person to think about is your soul has designed you this way because there's important lessons within that. And the moment you embrace those, then the judgments can really go away.
Wow. So would it be also true that if you get the lesson, let's say, okay, so the soul chose the body that wants to get the job done to learn acceptance. So when you get to acceptance, then does that mean the weight will just drop off?
Well, that depends, because maybe once you've accepted yourself, but truly, once you've accepted yourself, maybe you don't care how much you weigh, because you're going to accept yourself no matter what. So then the lesson is there, and then your body can find whatever it is that's most healthy and right for you, not because you're focused on your body, but because you've accepted yourself just as you are.
I love it. So if we're going to live a soul-focused life,
Mhm.
but we do have these physical vehicles we call our bodies, how
Yeah.
do we like align our spiritual or soul self with, we live in a physical world, and we're told to exercise, we're told, don't eat too many carbs, don't smoke cigarettes, or don't, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of messages we receive. So what would you say about that? And how do we respect the soul, which is more powerful and present, really, with that physical life and the messages around all that? Is that a confusing question, or did you follow that, Stephanie?
Sure, sure. I think the most important thing in looking at that is to realize that our souls are never going to guide us down a dark alley or down a dangerous path. So when we are in tune with that, we love ourselves more. We are able to choose healthier foods. We make healthier decisions. We're not doing it because we're supposed to. We start to discover that we're taking care of ourselves and nurturing and honoring ourselves because we want to.
Mm,
I want to love and care for myself because I'm here to enjoy life. I
mm,
want to practice some physical movement because it feels good to awaken myself and to engage my senses. I want to take care of myself because I love the gift of life, not because I'm supposed to or because the doctor says I should, but because I want to. I think that gives us such a fulfilling life, midlife and beyond.
mm. That's a lovely way to put it. Okay, I just thought of something, and my brain went another way. I lost what I was thinking.
Well, I think in midlife, we need to throw out the idea of exercise and just make it about joyful movement.
Ooh, joyful movement. I love that. Tell me more.
Well, exercise is boring and it's a chore, and we already have enough responsibilities in our lives. And then when you pile exercise on there, it just feels like one more.
Yeah,
So
for
what I
sure.
think is so important is no matter where we are, just enjoy being able to move. I'm going to get up and stretch, and I'm going to enjoy the feeling of that. I'm going to just notice as I'm walking to the kitchen that I can kind of skip and maybe bring a little bit of happiness to that.
Mhm,
Sometimes, yes, there is physical pain that we have as we move, but
mhm.
when we can focus on our other senses and the other parts of us that do have flexibility and mobility, then suddenly we really feel a lot different about having this gift of movement in the physical body.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like having a good relationship with movement instead of feeling like it's forced,
Yes,
prescriptive, prescribed.
yes.
activity or whatever, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's become another chore, another have to, another should. I feel guilty if I don't.
Another
And then
failure. Yes, another failure
another
that
failure.
people feel if they're
Yes.
not doing it, or they're not doing it 3 times a week for 30 minutes, or
Correct.
ugh,
Just
whatever.
instead, every day, notice how you move. Notice how much you actually move and give yourself credit for that. And then start enjoying that. Oh, that's kind of fun to skip to the kitchen. Or, oh, that really did feel fun to climb up those stairs. I'm winded, but it was kind of fun.
Mhm.
Start to notice how good movement feels. And then suddenly we're not focused on exercise. We're just moving our bodies because we're having fun.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done recently is I walk quicker through the grocery store because
Mhm.
I don't want it to take as long.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's a little exercise opportunity there, or joyful movement, as you would call it, right? So I just walk, I push the cart and walk a little more briskly and
Yeah.
stretch my legs a little further, longer strides and things like than probably most people do normally in their grocery shopping. And I
Mhm.
like it. I feel like I'm kind of getting using the body a little bit more in that
Mhm.
moment, in that, just that weekly activity then. And I joyfully move 4 to 5 times a week on purpose, just so everyone
Yes.
knows the weekly trip to the grocery store is not it for me, but it is another time where I feel like, oh, I'm gonna move my body.
And
My body wants to move. It doesn't want to
yes.
just clunk along down the vegetable
Yes.
aisle.
Yes.
No.
I agree. And the same is true even with things like doing laundry. I have what I call laundry yoga, where I'll reach really high to put the towels up and I'm stretching.
I love
Or
that.
as I'm pulling things out of the dryer, I'll do a nice forward bend and reach in so that I'm
Yes.
acknowledging flexibility, but it's not a separate thing from my everyday life. I'm bringing the consciousness into it as I'm doing an everyday chore.
Yes. Yes. One of my clients today that I had a session with said, well, I didn't exercise today, but I did outdoor projects. I was raking the leaves and I was, pulling the weeds, and I was da da da. And I'm like, no, you did. Like, and that was what exercise was like in pioneer days,
Sure.
farming days. People didn't get treadmills. They went out and picked potatoes or dug up the potatoes, and,
Right.
you know,
Right.
um, they were doing their work, which provided that movement for their bodies just naturally in their daily life. And I think that's part of what you're saying is we're
Mhm.
whatever we're doing, wherever we're going, what we're doing at home, to turn it into a celebration of the movement and abilities of our body. And that will also add to that positive relationship with it instead of this friction that many people are feeling.
Absolutely, because exercise is not something separate from, it's a part of. Physical movement is a part of who we are as physical beings. So when we start to weave that into our everyday awareness, we realize, oh yeah, I am moving and it feels really good. It just changes that whole animosity towards this idea of exercise.
Yeah, and talking about not judging ourselves, this is so important. So I was in I have some networking groups and things I'm involved with, and I remember a couple years ago one day. Well, it couldn't have been during COVID, so it was a while back. I'm not sure exactly when, but there were 12 of us sitting in a circle, and we were talking about our relationships with our bodies.
Mhm.
And we had, tall people, short people, thin people, fat people, muscular people. I mean, awkward people, very uh people with great posture, people without it, people, all kinds of wrinkled people, non-wrinkled, just every kind of body was sitting there.
Mhm.
And we challenged ourselves to pick whose body was the ideal body,
Mhm.
and nobody could do it.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
there wasn't one. Like, or they all were. I mean, you know what I mean? Like not one did not stick out over the other in any way. And I
Correct.
thought, oh my gosh, that's the lesson right there.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's the lesson right there is, first of all, when we do focus on our bodies, stop the judgment, like you're saying.
Yes.
And then we remember that we are far more than this shell that we're walking around in.
Absolutely. And again, that I have the ideal body to do my spirit's work. I have the perfect body to do what my soul came here to do.
Mm, wow. Are you hearing this, ladies?
That doesn't mean your body's perfect. It means you have the perfect body to do your soul's work.
Wow. I want everybody to just take that in for a second.
Mhm.
Perfect body to do our soul's work. Wow. So how do we know what our soul's work is?
Well, the
Tell
number
us,
one,
Stephanie.
well, each of us came here to learn to accept ourselves and to know that we're worthy of love. And I think especially for women, that is really one of our core struggles is worthiness.
Mhm, mhm. Yes.
And that is part of the challenge that's unique to women, and especially in midlife, is really learning that we're okay, we are worthy, we are deserving of support, nurturance, goodness, abundance, and love. And
Mm,
once we learn that, then we can refine some of the more detailed points. But the first thing that we're all here to learn is worthiness and self-love.
mm. And so you find that it's a particular challenge for women as well. I mean, I definitely find that to be true. Not that men don't have their things, and it's not a we're not anti-men here for sure, but
Sure.
I don't hear that as much from men.
Yes, I think for most of us as women, we tend to take in, take in, take in, take in, take in, and we don't often give ourselves permission to let go. Whereas I think oftentimes for men, it's easier to release either through getting angry or through working, or, it seems that there are a lot more socially acceptable techniques for release for men than they are for us as women.
Mm,
So once we can learn to let go of all that self-doubt, everybody else's problems, once we can start to accept who we are without taking everybody else's energy on, I do think that we can give ourselves a lot of room to grow and heal. But it is really accepting ourselves just as we are.
mm. So tell me about our soul's relationship with aging. Is that also a non-factor, or I mean,
Mhm. I think that's part of why some people seem to age more quickly than others, is because it's oftentimes an indication of how we've judged ourselves or how much we've taken on through life. What I've noticed is people who tend to age quickly are the people who absorb energy, and then it tends to age the body because we're taking everybody else's energy on.
mm, okay. Okay, so taking on more, the more we take on of other
The more
people's
our
energy
Yes, the
and
more our bodies tend to age. And so think about if you have a car and you put 700 pounds of bricks in the trunk, the car is going to sink and the tires are going to wear down really quickly. When
yes.
we're taking the weight of the world on our shoulders, our bodies start to have to process that energy, and we wrinkle, we put on weight, we feel tired, we can't sleep. Not because there's anything wrong with us, but because we're taking too much energy weight on.
Mm. Okay, so we need again to release it,
Yes,
let it go.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So even last night, uh, well, a client told me today how she witnessed something traumatic on television,
Mhm.
and she felt kind of stuck sitting there listening to this traumatic event about this traumatic event on the television, which of course we can all relate to that, right? Moments where
Sure.
we get caught up in what's happening and staying right there. And
Mhm.
she's a wise woman, and she knew, I can't control the situation, I can't do anything on behalf of this situation that's happening in the world,
Mhm.
but yet she couldn't pull herself away for
Mhm.
2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the 2 hours, then she did things to help kind of release it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is that when people are empathic, or they're very caring, or they're just very, um, what do we do? How do we manage that? What would be your recommendation?
I think if we are a very sensitive person, a lot of reflection, a lot of journaling is very significant, because again, that helps us begin to discern what's our own stuff versus what's the stuff that we've taken on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of, I call it sorting the laundry. What's my
Yeah.
laundry to do and take care of
Yeah.
it, and what is
Yeah.
not mine? What's
Yeah.
somebody else's?
Yes. And the best way, and one of the fastest ways that we can learn to recognize what's ours versus what's not, is if you have a feeling that comes out of nowhere. Well, I'm sad. I don't know why I feel sad, but I just suddenly started feeling sad. That's not yours.
Oh, so how did it show up then? You mean from witnessing something, or can it just?
Yes, or maybe it's in the air, or maybe a friend is going through a challenge or something. But oftentimes when we have those feelings of I suddenly felt, it means it's something that's happened around us and not something that has come up from within us.
Wow. Okay, so that's an indicator that it's somebody else's.
Yes. The other thing that I have found to be largely and consistently true is things that are like on the outside of our body are really more about the relationships or the feelings we have about people in the world, and pain or things that are inside us, like deep organ pain or immunocompromised, things like that, are more about the relationship we have with ourselves.
Okay, will you say that one more time? So pain on the outside of the body has to do with our relationships with others outside, out here.
How we're in.
Inner issues have to do with our relationship with ourselves.
Correct. So let's say, for an example, you have a rash on your skin. Usually that would indicate that there's somebody else who's irritating you.
Yeah.
And what is it that you need to do to figure out that irritation?
Wow. Okay. Okay, I get about once a year, I get one of those gross looking ugly things on my lip,
Uh-huh.
like a blister, or what are they? I don't know what they're called, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where it gets all
Yes.
once a year.
Yeah.
So that means I'm
So
angry at somebody or what?
necessarily angry, but is there someone that you need to communicate your truth to around that time? Because that would be some kind of unexpressed conversation or some unexpressed emotion with someone in your life that you need to share, and your body's telling you that.
Oh my, that is so interesting.
Because think about it, it's like you've been biting your lip and then energy builds up there. And so when you notice that blister, that sore coming up, like, well, who is it that I need to talk to? And let me just journal or write a letter and burn it. But it's about needing to release that energy.
Wow. Wow. Okay, I love it. Oh, this is so fascinating. We could talk all day, couldn't we?
I know,
About
I love this. And once people start to understand what the meaning is, then you have power to change it. And then you start to feel better. It's so powerful how this works, and it's real.
okay, so I want to be selfish for a minute and ask you about something of my own, because I declare I'm done doing this, but I have broken my wrists 3 times.
Mhm.
I fractured this wrist last year skiing. I fractured it 10 years before taking a fall down some steps. And
Mhm.
I fractured this one 6 years ago, also falling outdoors over a cement parking block.
Mhm.
So it's like broken wrist, broken wrist, broken wrist again. Now,
Mhm.
prior to that, I'd never broken any bone in my body. I haven't broken any other bones. And all three were just like freakish falls, kind of.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean, do you want to say anything about that? I'm open to whatever. I can take it, Stephanie. I trust you.
Well, I think the wrists, and what I've found to be true is our wrists represent how it is we're receiving.
Okay.
So at that time in your life, when you first broke the left wrist, I would wonder if you were struggling, feeling like you weren't receiving enough support, feeling that maybe there weren't people around you acknowledging you, or that you were having to do all the work, and you needed to break that pattern in some way, which is why then you had the break itself.
Well, the first time I broke this wrist, I was the year I got divorced.
Yes.
Yeah, about 5 months after my divorce was final.
Yes. So again, the releasing the frustration, needing a break from that relationship because you weren't receiving or you were receiving only what wasn't good for you. That was a really clear way that your body was telling you it's time to receive a little bit differently. You need a break from that relationship.
Wow. Wow. Is there any other symbolism around wrists that you
So
know?
the left side of the body, or the non-dominant side, is our receiving side. The right side is the giving side. So I would wonder if around the time when you broke your right wrist, if you were overworking, overthinking, overdoing, and like pushing yourself in too many directions. That would be the energy that I see around that when you broke the right wrist.
Mm, okay. Wow, that's really interesting.
So at that time in your life, were you overcommitting to things or trying to go in a lot of different directions?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was, I mean, it was an interesting chapter because I didn't want, I mean, I didn't want, nobody wants to get divorced, but I did. I'm the one who divorced my spouse, so to
Yes.
speak. I instigated the divorce, I guess is what I
Yeah.
should say. So there was a combination of, you know, great despair that I had reached this decision and that
Mhm.
I felt kind of hopeless, you know, totally hopeless about the marriage.
Mhm.
There was the guilt of that, you know, and
Mhm.
that, but yet there was this relief.
Yeah.
Okay, now my life is it's like a clean, like a clean slate. Now I can do whatever on it.
Yeah.
But we were also still raising two teenagers, and I was working full time, and I, you know, moved us to a different house, which I partially had to, like, you know, clean up and painting to do some things. I mean, there was a lot going on.
You
There's
were,
definitely
yeah.
a lot going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And that's what the right wrist was about maybe so many commitments, so many roles, having your hands in too many pots, so to speak. That's
Yeah,
what that represent at that time in your life, which makes sense. You were taking on a whole new role, a whole
yeah,
new role. So it was just your body telling you it's going to be okay. You can trust, but you may have doubted that at the time, even though you knew it was for the best.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like exactly. Well, that's so interesting. Well, are there, I know we've taken up a lot of time today. Is there anything else? Like, what would your final message be to women who are tired, they're exhausted, they're overwhelmed, they're aging faster than they want to, they're, you know, not loving their bodies? Any final wisdom you want to share or reiterate?
I just think just for each person to know that each of us is worthy of happiness. Each of us is worthy of vitality and joy and freedom. And when we believe that and accept that we're worthy, then we have some space to do some healing work. But first, it's just realize that each and every person is worthy of love.
Beautiful. Well, that I can't think of a better word to end on than love, right? Love.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what it's all about. So thank you, Stephanie, so much. I appreciate your wisdom. Now, where can people find you if they'd like to talk to you more about this or check out what all you've got going on?
Well, my website is angelsinsight.com. So Angels Insight. And I just encourage people to visit the website, learn a little bit more. I've got free meditations on the website, just lots of information, but I love being able to help people in this way and really do a little detective work sometimes, because when we understand why things happen, then we can let it go.
Yeah, yeah. And don't you have a book coming out or that just came out or something? Like, I still need to get it. So tell us where we can find that as well.
Well, that will be on my website too. It should be out within the next couple weeks. It's called Rocking Around the Clock.
Rocking Around the Clock. And what is it
Yes.
about? You've
It's
told me, but tell our listeners.
Well, I think that crystals are so beautiful and that they can help us in a lot of ways. So it's an exploration of how we can bring a little fun and a little crystal magic into life to help our bodies, minds, spirits feel really, really good.
That sounds like a lot of fun to learn more about. So, well,
Yes.
again, Stephanie, I thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to see you and get to talk to you. Thank you so much. And thank you out there listening. We appreciate you being with us here today. And please let me know if there's any way that I can serve you as well. Just go to cindydwhitmer.com to learn about my midlife makeover coaching groups and private coaching programs. And please share the news of this podcast with other friends, colleagues, family members that you think may benefit from what we have going on here. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye.